Why are you here? Why did you get invited to chat today?
Because I was the last recipient of the Tony Adams Rising Star Award.
And why do you think you got it?
Why do I think, you know what, I question it. I wonder why I got it. I was like, did they not get enough applicants? How did I manage to scrape through? But I think it's really because of the social source. So the work that we were doing with aggregating student conversations online and helping bring that to the forefront and from the sector and decision making.
Thing that students want to know and what we as institutions or organisations often think they want to know. They're often so separate.
I know. And the way their decision making changes and their, in terms of them being more action oriented, previously it's sort of parents ask you to go, you go. Now it's like I have a full list of questions that I want to know answers to, and if I don't have them, I might not go.
Yeah. So what are the questions, some of the things that the students were talking about that surprised you?
I think the biggest one is the level of detail in terms of how the institution is set up, where the budget goes, how the staff are protected, and I was just like, wait, I didn't even understand unions before I came here, and you guys are wanting to understand how an organization, an institution is set up, how decisions are made within an institution, and how that trickles down to a student learning. So I think for me, going through the journey, if I had to go back 10 years and tell myself something, I would have wanted to know that all of this actually existed for me, and these people were there to support me.
It's a really great point, and from a student's point of view, their experience is more than just what happens in the institution.
Absolutely.
When they think back of their time in Australia, yes, they will think about their lectures and shoots and their assignments, but they're going to think about where did they live, what did they do, who were their friends, what did they do for fun, what was the culture, what was the transport, what was the vibe.
You are here because you are the first ever.
People said I'm the first. I'm going to have to fact check that. So my entrance to international education is I was an engineer first.
Okay.
I then wanted to do impactful engineering work, so I joined a not-for-profit called Engineers Without Borders. And I was responsible for all of the education there. So essentially, how do we get engineers to work more globally, to care about issues in the global south, about developing countries.
And how did you transition from that to what you do now on YouTube, which I would love to know more about?
Yeah, so each of these steps, if you look back, you're like, how did you become an engineer? And now you're making content for the internet. But each step kind of makes sense. So, as I said, when I was doing engineering, I would do engineering education, and I would take these students to places like Nepal, and you'd see this, this one story comes to mind, is this guy's invented a brick press. So it uses all local materials, you can just press it, you leave it out in the sun, it dries. And this was an incredible machine, hand-built. Dozens of people in the whole world would have seen it. And I've got a group of 12 students, and they're like, this is so cool. And I just thought, so many people should know about this. So many people should know this story.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
So you do YouTube videos around the city and stuff like that. Do you ever do something around e-bikes, e-scooters, and the road rules here? You don't ride on the footpaths and all of that? Because that's a big thing that international students always ask us about.
How do we function? I have done some, because international students are a good example of the changing demographics of a city. It used to be broadly true, not universally true, that in Australia people had a car. That was just a thing that was largely true. Very few people didn't have a car or access to a car. International students don't often have cars. So the city that they need is a different, it's got some different needs to it. So how do we get around with just on a Myki card? How do we access university in a really accessible, affordable way? And these are some of the groups that are becoming more common, not less. People moving into the city, living in an apartment, don't need a car.
And I've been in Australia for 10 years now, so that's half the time that IEAA has been around. And I went from being an international student, not knowing anything, to then getting involved in student leadership, getting involved in advocacy, state and federal level, and now working in the sector. I think there's a lot of good that the sector does, but it's so segmented. You kind of have to crawl your way through and creep your way through to find things. International students who are here don't actually know that they can go and work in the sector as well. So even that bridge, the bridge of information and communication and connection, that's something that I want to see grow, and I see it growing. I don't know whether it's because I'm already in the sector that I go, oh, okay, we're all connected. But if you step back a little, you realize that the biggest part of that is also making sure students are connected as well, and that they know there's a whole gigantic sector that's actually backing them, that's doing all this amazing work for them, and for that to be visible, because it all happens behind closed doors.